Week 14 start and sits are super crucial because there is so much on the line this week. You could be fighting for a playoff spot. You could be fighting for a first round bye. You could honestly be fighting to not finish in last place. That is also a real thing. So we're going to help you get your lineups right for week 14 to help you bring home that championship, or maybe just not end up on a street corner embarrassing yourself this offseason. We're going to work our way down from the quarterback starts and sits all the way down to the tight end position, Ty. So let's start there. Who was your quarterback start this week?
I also just want to throw in real quick. Some of us are also trying to win in week 14 so we don't have to go up against a fellow because I would rather not have to go up against a stud-filled roster that you have.
That's true. Your matchups matter for the playoffs here this week too.
I know.
These games could dictate your playoff matchups. There is so much on the line in week 14.
Yeah. Anyway, my QB start of the week is Tua Tagovailoa, who has been wicked good in his last 3 games. And yes, I did throw in a wicked reference because that is the thing right now. Tua has scored 23.5 fantasy points or more in each of the last 3 games. So he is red hot right now. And since returning from his concussion in week 8, he is first in EPA per play. He is first in success rate. He's first in completion percentage. So not only has it been insanely efficient, we're seeing it show up in fantasy points as well. He gets the Jets this week. And I know on paper that sounds like it's a really tough matchup. And yes, the Jets have a really, really good secondary. But over the last month, this Jets defense is 30th in EPA per play. So they are towards the bottom of EPA per play, and they are dead last in EPA per drop back. Tua's been getting it done. I'm going to ride the hot hand. I'm not too scared by the matchup.
Anthony Richardson put up 272 on this team just 2 weeks ago. Need I remind people that? And that's not a day. I love Anthony Richardson, man. We are some of Anthony Richardson's biggest fans here on our channel. But when Anthony Richardson is hanging 272 on your secondary, Geno 206 and 1 last week wasn't great. But Kyler Murray even put up 266 on the Jets earlier. I mean, this is a defense you can't pass on. Sauce Gardner, again, as people have joked, I don't know if you can call him Sauce anymore. Maybe it's just Ahmad Gardner. The secondary is struggling. Okay, right? Like the secondary is struggling. They are not the same defense as they were last year. Even at the start of the season, that was intimidating. So, yeah, I'm good if you want to play Tua this week. If you want to play a red hot offense right now, go ahead, because you're missing Lamar Jackson this week. You're missing Jaden Daniels this week. There's one more quarterback that I'm Anthony Richardson. That's the other one. And Bo Nix, right? You are missing 4 of the borderline top 12 guys. I mean, Anthony Richardson, you could push him there if you want. Top 15 for sure. You're missing 4 top 15 guys. Tua could easily just slide his way into a top 10, top 12 finish this week. So I'm on board with that one. My quarterback start of the week, Sam Darnold of the Minnesota Vikings. Now, he's defied the odds recently because Chicago is actually one of the worst matchups for quarterbacks, but he had his second best weekly finish of the year at quarterback 6 against them. Arizona last week, they're actually 31st in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks over the last 5 weeks, meaning quarterbacks haven't been scoring points above expectation against them. Yet Darnold finished with 19 plus points for the 3rd straight weeks. But this week now he gets Atlanta. 8th most fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks this year. They are 8th in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to the position over the last 5 weeks. In Atlanta, they've got this decently good run defense. They've been run on the 7th fewest times this year. And you got to imagine Kirk is going to be looking to bounce back this week against his former team when he's quite literally fighting for his job. I mean, it doesn't sound like they're looking to pivot off of Kirk Cousins for this week, but if he puts up one more bad performance against the Vikings, I mean, they're going to be calling for Michael Penix sooner rather than later. They already have been, right? So in a high stakes game for Kirk Cousins here against his former team, I think he's going to be put in a position to sling the ball around the yard. Quarterbacks have had success against the Vikings. We saw Kyler Murray do it last week. So it's going to be like a little mini pseudo shootout here between Sam Darnold and Kirk Cousins this week. So Sam Darnold, my start of the week at quarterback.
He's been getting it done. And the thing with Sam Darnold that we've said before is that he's got to throw multiple touchdowns because he's not going to run. Yeah. He may pick up 20 yards, but he's not going to rush for any touchdowns. you know that the yards are going to be good as well. He's going to be sitting kind of around that 240, 250 mark as well. So if he's going to throw for multiple touchdowns, Sam Darnold is going to crack the top 12. And that's what he's been doing as of late. And the big concern, at least, before really the Tennessee game, maybe more so the Chicago game, was just how many turnovers were happening from Sam Darnold, interceptions, fumbles, whatever it was. The turnovers are being cleaned up right now. It is not Sam Darnold that is, losing the turnovers here for this Vikings offense. So as long as he protects the ball, continues to sling it around the yard like he has been, Sam Darnold is going to continue to stay in fantasy lineups.
Before we move on to our quarterback sits. Oh my gosh, quarterback sits. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel here. We are pumping out content for you all season and all off season long as well. I know we're approaching the end of the fantasy football season. We're not going anywhere though. All right. So if you're not subscribed already, make sure you do that. Turn on the notification bell as well, so you know when all of our newest episodes are up. And so you also know when we go live on Sundays. We do a start and sit Q&A on Sunday mornings before kickoff. So come join Ty, come join Cameron, or myself, depending on which fella it is for the week. We're going to answer all your start sit questions before kickoff if you want additional help leading up to the week 14 slate. Let's move on to quarterback sits, Ty. Gosh, I cannot say quarterback sits today. I need to slow down, breathe. While I do that, who are you sitting at quarterback this week?
I'm sitting Geno Smith. Since the bye week, so in his last 3 games, he hasn't had more than 16.7 fantasy points in a game, and that was saved by the late rushing touchdown against San Francisco. So if he hadn't scored that, he would be kind of sitting around like 12, 13 fantasy points a game. So it's not been great since then. No multi-passing touchdown games in that stretch either. So it's been efficient ball because Seattle has been winning games, but you don't score from just efficiency metrics in fantasy football. He gets Arizona again this week, 5th fewest passing yards per game the last month. He did just throw for a touchdown in 250 against them. Arizona, again, has been much better on defense as of late. I'm not expecting I'm not expecting multiple touchdowns from Geno. I think you can sit him.
I'm going to sit Brock Purdy this week. The Bears, I mean, again, despite what I just said about Sam Darnold, they've actually just been so stingy against quarterbacks. 2nd fewest fantasy points allowed per game to the position. Only 3 quarterbacks have thrown for multiple touchdowns against them this year, and you're still potentially without Trent Williams in this game. So Brock Purdy, not a guy I'm too interested in, especially as he's nursing his way back to health. Not a guy I want to force into my lineup this week in a negative matchup. Let's move on to the running back position. Ty, running back starts of the week. Who are you starting?
It's Brock Purdy's new starting running back. It's Isaac Guerendo. I need to say this outright. It is not a foregone conclusion that this is Isaac Guerendo's backfield.
I agree.
This could be a timeshare between Patrick Taylor and Isaac Guerendo. They also have Izzy Abanikanda, your guy from what was that, 2022?
2022, yeah.
Oh boy. But anyway, needless to say, Isaac Guerendo needs to prove in this game that this is his backfield. And over the last month, since losing Andrew Billings, Chicago is 9th in rushing yards allowed per game. They're 11th in yards per carry, 24th in success rate, meaning teams are running the ball well against the Bears. If there was a game for Isaac Guerendo to lock down this backfield to make sure that it's his, it's this one against Chicago. Could there be a new coach bounce from Chicago in this game? Absolutely, right? Eberflus seemed to be the big problem in Chicago, and now that he's out, you might see I don't want to say a new Chicago team, but at least a revitalized Chicago team. But again, with Bimageddon, Bipocalypse 2.0 this week, I'm willing to take the chance with Guerendo this week.
What are the odds that you think this is actually a split backfield here? Like, how much do you think actually goes to Guerendo? How much do you think and Izzy Abanikanda actually factors in here? And again, I think it's much. I don't think it's as much Izzy Abanikanda considering they just cleaned him off of waivers. But what's your level of confidence in Guerendo getting the majority of the workload here?
I would say it's probably like 35-40% that he gets this, that the backfield is already his. I think it's I'm expecting a timeshare in this backfield, at least for this game, but I think Guerendo can be the most efficient back in the backfield.
49ers -4 in this game.
Interesting.
That's fascinating.
So Vegas either thinks that Purdy is going to be A-okay, or they think that Chicago is going to continue to be Chicago.
in this game, I'm triple checking where this game is. Okay, it's at San Francisco. I was going to say, if this game was in Chicago, that line makes no sense to me whatsoever. I don't want to go as far as saying I think Chicago can steal this one. I actually think Chicago could steal this one. I actually have a decent amount of confidence that Chicago easily could cover the spread, but they could almost win this game outright. So it'll be interesting to see how Isaac Guerrero factors in here. But yeah, I'm with you. Isaac Guerrero, I think you can fire him up this week. I think he's much more one of those fringy guys, much more fringy than my guy. But if you want to start up Isaac Guerrero this week, you probably unloaded your fab clip on him off of the waiver wire if you went out and got him. So it's going to be tough to keep him out of your lineup this week, especially if you're thin at the running back position. I mentioned my guy isn't as fringy. That's because it's Tony Pollard of the Tennessee Titans. Now, I know he was disappointing against the Washington Commanders last week, excuse me. So consider this your vote of confidence to play him again this week after only 8.8 fantasy points last week. He's actually scored less than 10 fantasy points in 2 of his last 3 games too, but he gets the Jaguars this week. Talk about a perfect bounce back situation. They are one of the easiest defenses to pick on for fantasy running backs this year. Over their last 5 games, Aaron Jones is the only running back to not score at least 19 fantasy points against this defense. David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, they went for 19 plus together in the same game. Monty had 24 and Jahmyr Gibbs had 19.1 himself. So I know Tennessee is nowhere near the level of the Detroit Lions, right? But if Tony Pollard's floor is Aaron Jones's 12.1 fantasy points in this game, that is for sure startable when you have Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, Jonathan Taylor, all on bye this week. I think Tony Pollard is a very clear top 20 play this week. He should be started in all leagues.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will see that Tyjae Spears is also going to play, and they may be like, well, when Spears is played, Tony Pollard has not done as well.
It's been underwhelming.
It's underwhelming, but it's not because of Tyjae Spears. It's really because of game script.
Well, Tyjae Spears has been underwhelming. That's what I was trying to
say. Right. Sorry. Yes. But like Tony Pollard last week against Washington, they got down super early, so they abandoned the run, right? You had Minnesota, 9 carries, but only 15 yards. No one was expecting Tony Pollard to do well in that game. The Chargers, 9 carries, 44 yards. Those games were negative game scripts for Tony Pollard when Tyjae Spears was healthy too. So in a game against Jacksonville, I think Tennessee actually, I believe they're favored in this game according to Vegas. So if Tennessee can win this game and stay ahead, Tony Pollard is going to get the rock.
Tony Pollard also drew 6 targets last week, caught 4 passes as well. Tyjae Spears did not catch a pass last week. No, I don't think that's going to hold true. I mean, Tyjae Spears is working his way back from a concussion, but I did find that peculiar. In a game in which they were down, I figured Tyjae Spears would be filling in a lot more in the receiving game there, but he was not. So yeah, Tony Pollard can even get it done a little bit in the PPR land as well. Fire him up this week. I think he's a perfectly fine start, especially against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are a phenomenal defensive target for running backs. Running back sits, Ty. Who are you sitting this week?
Gus Edwards. I think a lot of people will be excited that I need to rephrase that. I almost said that J.K. Dobbins landed on IR and they're excited. We're not excited that J.K.
We're not excited about that. I feel terrible.
I'm crying in the club, to be completely honest with you. Gus Edwards now as the lead back in the backfield, people will get excited about. You can't trust it against Kansas City this week. I mean, Kansas City, 2nd lowest yards per carry, 3rd lowest rushing yards per game, 5th lowest rushing EPA. I mean, Kansas City shuts down opponents' running games. Last week was a weird game for the Chargers offensively as well. So I'm not going to take too much out of it, but the matchup alone will push me to sit Gus Edwards.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas City's just been so stellar against running backs this year. They've been stifling. So yeah, literally no need to shove Gus Edwards into your lineup, even if you're without a Derrick Henry, a Jonathan Taylor, Joe Mixon, as I mentioned earlier. I'm going to go ahead. Similar situation. I'm going to set Chuba Hubbard this week against the Eagles defense. They've actually been insanely good recently. And I know Bryce Young and this Panthers offense have been improving, but I legitimately think the Eagles may just dog walk them in this game because I can sit here and give you all the stellar defensive metrics for the Eagles, but I want to note really that Jonathan Brooks has been steadily getting more involved. He got 9 touches last week against the Bucs, and he actually looked good. When he was coming into contact with the defender, it wasn't I'm gonna pull up and just absorb the hit. He putting his shoulder down through the defender and gaining extra yards as well. Efficiency wise, in terms of the rushing game, it's not there, but he's passed the eye test so far coming off his ACL. But I think what's significant about that for Hubbard is that he actually saw his fewest total touches since week 1 last week. And that's not the direction I want to be heading into a matchup with an Eagles defense that has only allowed 3.8 yards per carry to running backs since their bye week. And over the last 5 contests, they are 27th in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to the position. So yeah, I have no interest in Chuba Hubbard this week. I know a lot of people after this week, the schedule opens up a bit for the Carolina Panthers here, and they're like, Chuba, league winner. I'm legitimately worried about Jonathan Brooks, and especially this week to get you to the playoffs. Like, Chuba's not going to do you any favors.
No, I agree with it. And if we see Jonathan Brooks continue to get more involved, it's going to be in the receiving game. So we're just banking on Chuba to score. And you want to take the risk of him scoring against Philly? Yeah. I really don't.
4 rushing touchdowns on the season, I believe. I'm going to fact check myself on that. It's an absurdly low number, though, of rushing touchdowns they've allowed this year.
So you know what that means, though?
Yes, 4 rushing touchdowns on the season.
You know what that means, though?
What does that mean? Chuba's going for 3 tutties this
game. We're going to get a Chuba Hubbard legacy game.
Right. I just had to bring it up, right? Oh, only 4 touchdowns allowed this year. Yeah, Chuba's going for 250 and 2 this week. Just wait, man. Let's take a quick break, Ty. We'll be back with pass catching start and sits afterwards. Today's podcast episode is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Now, we love Underdog. It is the easiest place to play best ball formats, and they even have their own form of player props called Pick'em. You can make up to 20 times your money on a single night by correlating props together. 2 picks will triple your money, 3 will 6 times it, 4 will 10 times it, and 5 plays that all hit will multiply your entry by 20. You can even place insurance on your picks too, so if only 4 of your 5 props hit, you still get 10 times your entry. And if you use our code FELLAS when signing up, Underdog is going to double your first deposit up to $100. Alrighty, we are back. We have covered quarterback and running back starts and sits of the week. Ty, let's move on to the pass catchers now. Start with the wide receiver starts of the week. This is your guy you're firing up this week. You've been on him. You've been on him more than any of us have the second half of the season here. Who's your wide receiver start of the week?
Yeah, he was my second half of the year flag plant. Let's call
right
here. It's Jacoby Myers. With no run game, this offense is going to continue to go through Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers, regardless if it's Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell. The only time I'll be concerned is if we get Desmond Ridder. Okay, if we get Desmond Ridder, then all hope is lost. But Jacoby Myers has been on fire since Devontae Adams was traded. Yeah. Wide receiver 13 in points per game. Wide receiver 14 in usage. So we're matching up there. 9th in receptions and targets. 15th in yards. The dude has been on fire. And he has an exploitable matchup this week against Tampa Bay, who are 2nd in receptions allowed on the year, 5th in total yards, rushing and receiving combined. So it's not like this team is going to shut down Vegas because they just leak yards. The one thing that's been working against Myers is that he has only scored 1 touchdown since Devontae got traded. So you're not going to get insane touchdown upside. He may score. I'm not banking on that. This is purely me banking on just volume continuing to be the trend for Jacoby Myers like it has been over the last 5 weeks.
Well, let's quantify volume. Like you talk about, he's been on fire. He's been getting all sorts of 11 plus targets in 3 of his last 4 games. He's drawn 26 targets over the last 2 weeks. 11 targets, 15 targets, 6 receptions for 97 yards this last week, 10 receptions for 121 yards against the Broncos, 8 receptions for 105 yards against the Bengals. Has not scored, but has not mattered at the same time either when he has given you 3 top 25 finishes in his last 4 games as well. Yeah, Jacoby Myers is like as startable of a piece as any other wide receiver right now. It is so ugly. And you might be like, yeah, Jacoby, he's just a floor play though. I don't know, man. If floor is 15 fantasy points, when he's given me 15 plus in 4 of his last 5 games, like that's a pretty darn good floor play if that's what you're going to call Jacoby Myers. So yeah, I'm with you. And against Tampa Bay, he's an absolute start. I have a feeling We're probably going to talk about Jacoby Myers next week and the week after, and then in the championship rounds as well, because he gets Atlanta, Jacksonville, and New Orleans then after this. So yeah, Jacoby Myers is like league winning potential this year. I know you talked about him earlier this week on the Hidden Gems episode for the fantasy playoffs. People think Jacoby Myers is so unsexy from a fantasy perspective, but he's just going to give you nothing but stability here, I feel like, to close out the season, and like high floor stability as well. So Jacoby Myers is 100% fire him up this week. This is a great matchup, and he's going to keep rolling up volume. You all of a sudden got that look on your face.
Unrelated to fantasy, but Aziz Al-Shaair was appealing his suspension.
Yes,
it was upheld.
What do you mean
his
upheld?
suspension?
Oh yeah.
Ooh, 3 games, and this is Houston's, like, this is like the gauntlet of their schedule, because it's the Chiefs. It's
I see.
Baltimore,
Okay, I see. Sorry, I'm like, and this is like, I don't understand what. Yes, okay, I see what you're saying. Yes. I'll move on to my wide receiver start of the week here. Look, just put Jerry Jeudy into your lineup. Okay. I don't have any like statistical evidence as to why this is a good matchup for him against the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's nothing that tells you that you should be starting wide receivers against the Steelers, but I don't know how on earth you can't start Jerry Jeudy at this point. All right. Because since Jameis Winston took over in week 8, Jerry Jeudy is the wide receiver 3 in fantasy points per game, averaging 21.7 points per game. He is 3rd in air yards with 637, and he is 1st in receiving yards per game with 122.8. That is nearly 14 more yards per game than second place T. Higgins. Okay? I mean, that's with a bye in between, y'all. So he could be leading the league in air yards as well. He could be leading the league in a lot of other metrics too that I didn't even put on here, because he has been that good. He's not doing this on like an extraordinary first read share either, or over like in like an overabundance of design plays or anything. This is Jameis just slinging it around the yard. And like, I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment either, because he's coming off a 40.5 point game, but even his last 5 finishes, 12.9, 14.3, 26.2, 14.5. And again, 40.5 this last week. But 4 of those finishes were top 25 finishes at the position. So I think Jerry Jeudy is a wide receiver 2 lock again this week against Pittsburgh. I mean, considering he just put up 14.5 against him and gave you a top 25 finish. So yeah, at this point, you just got to play Jerry Jeudy because Jameis is that quarterback and he's on fire right now. It kind of doesn't matter the statistical evidence here for the matchup.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to look at last week and be like, well, the wide receiver 3 in fantasy points per game is heavily skewed because of that 40 point week that he had. Take out that game, he is the wide receiver 8 in points per game,
right?
And he's top 10 in yards. So unless you really just don't like Jerry Jeudy, you have no reason not to start him.
Let's move on to wide receiver sits. You have like the 2 guys that we have are like polar opposites. I've got a young blossoming stud, and you have an old, probably ready to hang it up at any point kind of player. So I'll let you start here. Who's your wide receiver sit of the week?
It's Adam Thielen. Okay, it's old man Thielen.
Playing well recently.
Well, it's really just been 1 game.
Recently, that counts recently.
Yeah, true. Very much the same reason that you had for sitting Chuba Hubbard. It's Philadelphia, okay? And we are about to witness some white on white crime, with Thielen being the slot wide receiver and Cooper DeJean being the slot corner for Philly. It's going to be bad. Thielen is in for a rough one. I think a lot of people, again, are going to see 10 targets and score 8 receptions from Thielen and be like, well, maybe. I mean, they got to move the ball somehow. I'm not taking the risk. You can't do it this week.
No, Philadelphia's just been stifling. I mean, they are first in schedule adjusted fantasy points to wide receivers over the last 5 weeks, allowing 12.6 points below the average in their last 5 games. I mean, they've been on fire. They've been shutting down everybody, and it's been Quinion Mitchell. Both he and Cooper DeJean and Quinion Mitchell have both been stepping up and have been playing stellar football recently. So yeah, I mean, this Eagles defense is legit. I mean, if there's a team I don't want to face here, tail end of the season going into the playoffs, it's the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, they're playing really nasty football on defense right now. So I'm with you. I don't think you need to fire up Adam Thielen. I know we got 8 receptions on 10 targets last week. Gave you a touchdown as well. Just an Eagles defense I don't want to mess around with. Is there a chance Thielen volumes his way to relevance this week? Is there a way where Thielen gives you 6 for 50 and finds the end zone? Like, what are the chances of that?
0.
My only thing that I'm thinking about is, and like I don't disagree with your opinion. I'm just like talking through my thoughts here, because they're getting dog walked by the Eagles. I mean, the Eagles are 11.5 point favorites in this game. If they're getting dog walked by the Eagles, they're gonna have to throw, right? And like I'm not expecting Thielen to go out there and give us 12 targets for 120 yards and a score to keep up with them, right? But like, is there a world where he's just like good enough?
I'm gonna bet against that. I mean, if we take a look at Bipocalypse Part 1, and if we look up a guy that semi-volumed his way into a relevant week, it was you can maybe make an argument for like a Tyreek Hill, Jawan Jennings. He went 5 on 7 targets for 40 yards. That was 9 points. That was still the wide receiver 43. Yeah. So I don't have a good feeling about it. I think in order for Thielen to really be like a relevant wide receiver this week, and when I say relevant, I mean a top 36 wide receiver.
Right, a flex play. Yeah.
It's got to be 11 or more points. I just don't think that happens.
Sure. Right. And I guess that's what I'm wondering is like, can we get 6 for 50 and get to 11 that way in full PPR? Maybe. I'm with you though. I wouldn't bank on it. I'd be banking on anywhere between 4 to 7 points for Thielen this week, most likely. My wide receiver sit of the week, young blossoming stud wide receiver, Brian Thomas Jr. Unfortunately, he's got to take a seat on your bench this week. Trevor Lawrence was placed on IR today, which honestly, he should have never been in last week's game, in my opinion, but we can talk about Trevor Lawrence another time. He's officially done for the year. And the last time we saw Brian Thomas without Trevor Lawrence, it actually wasn't 2 favorable matchups with the Vikings and the Lions. Against the Vikings, he only gave you 12 yards on 2 receptions. But then against the Lions, he did give you 82 yards on 5 receptions. That was only good for the wide receiver 30 finish, though. This week against the Titans, though, not as favorable of a matchup as the Lions or the Vikings. I know Terry McLaurin, Nico Collins, Jordan Addison, and Justin Jefferson have kind of had their way against the secondary the last few weeks. But Mac Jones, okay, the starting quarterback now for the Jacksonville Jaguars, he is not on the same level as Jaden Daniels, as CJ Stroud, as Sam Darnold under Kevin O'Connell. I wouldn't blame the Jaguars at all for just kind of, taking their foot off the gas, just throwing in the towel on the season here this week. So Brian Thomas and Mac Jones, that's a no bueno for me. I'm gonna pass on playing Brian Thomas this week.
It's tough with Brian Thomas because you may have to play him. Like in the matchup is like decent enough that you may feel comfortable doing it. I just think for me, if you're going to play Brian Thomas Jr., you have to like substantially drop your expectations, right? Like you said in that Minnesota game, just 2 catches for 12 yards. I'm not going to sit here and say that can happen again, but the floor is just scary low with Mac Jones.
Right. I mean, that's what I'm scared of is a 2 for 12 day here. I don't think we're getting a 5 for 82 day here. I think this is going to be a 2 for 12 day. And, even if you're shooting the middle, let's shoot the middle on that. 3 for 45, 7.5 without a score. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in Brian Thomas this week. Jacoby Myers over Brian Thomas this week. No question. That's a no-brainer for me. All right, Ty, let's play everybody's favorite game of the week. Who the crap do I start at my tight end position this week? Because it feels like a revolving door if you don't have one of the big 4 in Brock Bowers, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, and golly, who's the other one that I'm thinking of that I
Bowers.
Whatever. It doesn't matter, Ty. Who
Bowers,
are you starting
Kittle,
at?
Kelsey.
Who are you starting at tight end this week?
Oh boy. It's gonna annoy me. So now I'm gonna look this up as I talk about Tucker Kraft. Okay, Tucker Kraft.
He's not the big 4, but that's who you're starting.
Correct. Jonnu Smith, was that the 4th?
No,
it's McBride.
No. Thank you, Trey McBride.
Jeez, the guy,
the guy
that's been Boy, golly.
It's like when you go through ranking, it's just mindless. It's just like, yep, those four are at the top. I
man.
don't even think about them. I don't even think about them. They're just at the top of my rankings.
Boy, that's low key embarrassing. We just forgot about Trey McBride for the fact that he's gotten back-to-back games with 12 receptions.
Hey, he was my flag plant this year. It's nothing more embarrassing than that.
Is that a victory lap?
No, that's I really should have remembered.
Anyway, back to Tucker Kraft. Romeo Doubs is out for week 14 again with a concussion. So in games where one of the four wide receivers, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Dontavion Wicks, are out, Tucker Kraft has finished as the tight end 1, and tight end 12, averaging 18.6 fantasy points in those games. He just went for 13 last week with no Romeo Doubs. It's a tough matchup against Detroit. I get it. That may be a reason for people.
Understatement.
Okay, some of us are really, really banking on Tucker Kraft in some of our matchups. But yes, it's a very, very bad matchup. Okay, I'm not going to deny that. But in a high-scoring matchup, I'm going to just say this outright. I think Green Bay wins this game.
Yeah, I think they can.
In a high-scoring matchup, in a game where Green Bay, I believe, will win, I'm taking the chance again. I'm going to follow the pattern that Tucker Kraft will come through without another starting wide receiver.
I know when you go by that logic, I mean, I get it. If you're like, I think Green Bay wins this game, I think they hang with the lines of what could potentially be. I mean, 51.5 is the over under here point total for this game. Yeah, I get if you want to look at it from that perspective. I mean, only 375 yards allowed to tight ends this year for the Detroit Lions, dead last in fantasy points per game allowed to the position. They've given up only 7 fantasy points per game to the position. So, I respect it. I don't think I would have looked Tucker Kraft's way. He's a top 15 guy this week for me for sure. But if you like, some people might be in a pinch and it's like, that's all I got. It's him or it's Mark Andrews on bye. Well, yeah, you're obviously playing Tucker Kraft this week. So consider that Ty's vote of confidence for Tucker Kraft. I'm gonna fire up Cade Otton this week is my pick. Even with Mike Evans last week, 8 and golly, Cade Otton still drew 7 targets against the Panthers. Only mounted 4 catches for 20 yards, but now he gets this super plus matchup against the Raiders. And I cannot stress super plus enough because Vegas is first in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to tight ends over the last 5 weeks. They are allowing 13.1 more points above average to the position. That is 6 more than any other team in the league. I mean, that is an absurd number. They've given up 105 yards per game to tight ends in their last 5 games. And if you remove their matchup with the Broncos in week 12, where Adam Troutman only had 3 receiving yards and was the only tight end to catch a pass, that's basically 105 yards per game in 4 contests. Okay. They are getting chewed up by the tight end position. Otton's going to be a top 10 play for me this week in my rankings. You could do a heck of a lot worse than Cade Otton for your fantasy playoffs. So yeah, I'm firing him up this week. He is a top 10 play for me.
This one is a little weird to me because when you think of Vegas, you think you're going to be able to run all over them, right? With Bucky Irving, with how well he's been playing, you can. But over the last month, they're actually they are 3rd in rush defense success rate. Vegas is. So can Tampa run on them? Sure, but recent trends would tell you that this may not be so much of a like ground and pound game for Tampa. And if they need to throw the ball, because they haven't needed to as often the last 2 weeks, I will say that, right? So yes, the Mike Evans return, did complicate things a little bit for Cade Otton, but again, they haven't needed to really throw the ball because you had the Giants and then you had the Panthers. So right. In a game where you potentially need to throw the ball more, maybe there is something still in store for Cade Otton. And maybe instead of him being the consistent, top 8 tight end without Mike Evans, he's just going to be a very like matchup dependent tight end, which is not a problem, especially when you've got a team like Vegas.
25th in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to running backs over the last 5 weeks. So towards the bottom of the pack there for the Raiders. They have actually been good against running backs as of recent. Rapid fire here, quick Ty. I don't want to spend too much time on tight end sits, especially when both of these guys, I'm just like, I don't think we need to do too much explaining on either of these guys. Who are you sitting at tight end? I'm sitting Cole Kmet. Tough matchup with the 49ers. Only giving you one finish better than the tight end 23 in the last 5 games. Who are you sitting?
I'm sitting Kyle Pitts.
You
Run
have
it
to at this
back.
point.
Run it back.
You have to at this point. It's so
Tight
bad.
end 40 in usage since week 9.
Oh, it's so
You want
bad.
to trust that?
Oh.
He has more games with less than 2.1 fantasy points since week 9 than more. Okay. Run it back. Sick Kyle Pitts.
I was so miserable last week. I couldn't believe it. I also didn't understand the Falcons game plan going into that game either against the Chargers. Why did they think what about running the ball in a Jim Harbaugh defense did you think was going to be successful?
Oh, it was. I mean,
And so when you but when they're running the ball, they're taking Kyle Pitts off the field. He's not out there
Right.
blocking. So what? I just don't understand the game plan there. What do you think was going to be? You just really thought you could out tough Jim Harbaugh? That doesn't compute to me. Maybe I don't know ball, but sorry. When I'm thinking about attacking a Jim Harbaugh defense, I don't think it's a good idea. What if we try and beat them at their own game when that's not our forte?
well, how much of that game do you think was because Kirk Cousins is throwing 4 interceptions? So you can't trust Kirk.
Yeah, I get that. At the same time,
'cause-
though, and the game was close enough, so I get it. I get the Chargers weren't putting on much pressure either, but man, I don't know what about that game made you think yeah, we're just gonna run and run the ball and take Kyle Pitts off the field and not help Kirk Cousins regain any sort of momentum or confidence by maybe getting Kyle Pitts in open space.
It sounds like you. It feels like you're just kind of hating on us Bijan managers at the moment because
No,
Bijan
that's nothing against you all Bijan managers. I'm all for. I just we're spending way too much time on Kyle Pitts as a tight end sit, but just I'm sorry, I needed to rehash that out. I'm just I know the box score was 17-14, but man,
Zach, what are we doing?
You literally can't play Kyle Pitts. You can't.
No, can't.
I was watching a live today. Someone suggested starting Juwan Johnson over Kyle Pitts. Did you do that? Did you start Juwan Johnson over Kyle Pitts?
No Taysom Hill.
No Taysom Hill. I mean, it's literally him and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. That's all that. Literally, the only 3 people that can catch the ball in New Orleans. Convinced. You got sneaky Dante Pettis in there too.
Would you rather start Cole Kmet or Kyle Pitts?
Oh.
Or just go without a tight end at that point?
Yeah, honestly, I would surf the waiver wire.
Luke Schoonmaker.
I would play. I would play Theo Johnson at that point.
Oh, he's out.
Oh, he is out. You're right. Tommy Tremble. Give me Tommy Tremble then.
Tommy Tremble. Let's go.
Oh man. Not Tommy Tremble. Jatavian Sanders. That's what I was thinking of. Not Tommy
He's
Tremble.
out too. Isn't he? No, he's back. He was back.
I thought Jatavian Sanders was back.
Yeah, it was not.
It's one of the two. If Jatavian Sanders is out, then yeah, I'd play Tommy Tremble.
If we're talking about the Panthers tight end to start over Kyle Pitts, you know it's over. It's Jover.
People have already clicked off of this video. If you did hang around, thanks for our fun banter at the end. If you're not subscribed to the channel, again, make sure you do that. We got a Discord as well. If you can't wait till Sunday, your comment doesn't get answered in our comment section as well. We got people waiting over in our Discord to help you out too. So make sure you head over there, join our Discord, get more start sit questions answered there. You can follow our socials as well. FFFellas on Twitter, the FFFellas on Instagram, Fantasy Football Fellas on Facebook and TikTok. I am at Lucas Wenzel on X and Blue Sky. I don't even know if that's worth plugging. Blue Sky. I don't know. Jake Seeley followed me back today. I was pretty pumped about that on Blue Sky. He's my 19th follower on Blue Sky. You can follow Tyler on X as well, Tyler_Plath. We'll see you all next week. We're potentially doing some schedule adjusting here. We'll still have risers and fallers next week. We'll still have starts and sits next week. We're debating what that Monday or that Tuesday episode, will be. And from there on out, we might be adjusting the schedule. We'll keep you all updated on that. But best of luck in your week 14 matchups. A lot on the line here. Wishing you all the best in your fantasy matchups this week. We'll see you all next week in the playoffs. Deuces.